In the late 1960s, Norton had a problem that could have ended one of Britain's most famous motorcycle stories. The company had a powerful engine. It had a respected name. It had racing heritage that most manufacturers could only dream about. And it had a new 750cc twin that was capable of serious speed. But there was one thing threatening to ruin the whole package. Vibration. Not a little vibration. Not the pleasant mechanical pulse that riders often associate with a British twin. This was the kind of vibration that could turn a fast motorcycle into an exhausting machine. It could blur mirrors, shake instruments, loosen components, and leave the rider feeling as though they had spent the afternoon holding on to a running engine. Norton had built a motorcycle that could go fast. The question was whether anyone could actually enjoy riding it. That problem led to one of the most important engineering decisions in the history of British motorcycles: rubber. More specifically, Norton's Isolastic mounting system. The result was the Norton Commando. When the motorcycle appeared at the end of the 1960s, it looked like another classic British performance twin. There was a large parallel twin engine, a long fuel tank, chrome exhausts, a traditional frame, and the unmistakable appearance of a machine built for the open road. But underneath that familiar exterior, Norton had done something radical. Instead of allowing the engine's vibration to travel directly into the frame and rider, the company isolated the engine and gearbox assembly from the chassis, using specially designed rubber mounts. That simple idea changed everything. To understand why, you have to go back to Norton's existing 750cc engine. The Commando was based around the Atlas engine, a 745cc parallel twin that had already earned a reputation for strong performance. The Atlas was powerful, but its vibration was a serious issue. Norton engineers knew that simply increasing power wasn't enough. The motorcycle had to become more usable. This was especially important because the motorcycle industry was entering a new period of competition. Japanese manufacturers were becoming more sophisticated. Riders were beginning to expect better reliability, smoother operation, and more refinement. British motorcycles still had tremendous emotional appeal, but character alone wasn't going to guarantee survival. Norton needed something special, and the company found it in the Commando. The name itself sounded aggressive. Commando. It suggested speed, strength, and purpose. The motorcycle's appearance matched that image. The tank was long and sculpted, the seat was relatively slim, and the engine dominated the center of the machine. The exhaust system gave the motorcycle a purposeful stance, while the overall design looked unmistakably British. But the most important part of the Commando wasn't something you could easily see. It was the way the motorcycle was mounted together. The Isolastic system separated the engine, gearbox, and related components from the main frame through rubber mounting points. The idea was surprisingly clever. Instead of trying to eliminate the vibration at its source, Norton allowed the engine to vibrate while preventing much of that movement from reaching the rider. That distinction is crucial. The engine didn't suddenly become perfectly smooth. The vibration was still there. It was simply no longer being transmitted directly into the parts of the motorcycle that mattered most to the rider. The result was a machine that could use the same basic parallel twin architecture while feeling dramatically more civilized. This was one of those engineering solutions that seems obvious only after someone has already invented it. Norton didn't need to completely redesign the engine. It didn't need to turn the motorcycle into a four-cylinder. It didn't need to abandon the British twin. Instead, it changed the relationship between the engine and the chassis. That allowed the Commando to keep the character of the big Norton twin while making the motorcycle much easier to live with. And that was exactly what Norton needed, because the engine had plenty of character already. The 745cc twin produced strong torque, and the motorcycle could accelerate with serious authority. It wasn't a high-revving engine in the modern sense. Its strength was the broad, physical feeling of the power delivery. Twist the throttle and the motorcycle moved forward with determination. The exhaust note was deep and unmistakably British. The engine had that familiar parallel twin rhythm, but the Commando made it feel more aggressive. The motorcycle was not shy about announcing itself, and when the road opened up, it had the performance to justify the noise. Depending on gearing, specification, and conditions, the Commando could reach speeds around the 115 to 120 miles per hour range. That put it firmly among the serious British performance motorcycles of its generation. But the real revelation came when you rode it. A powerful engine is impressive. A powerful engine that doesn't shake you apart is much more useful. This is why the Isolastic system became so important to the Commando's reputation. For decades, British motorcycles had often been criticized for vibration. Riders accepted it because it was part of the experience, but Norton decided that acceptance wasn't good enough. The company wanted to separate performance from discomfort. The rider should be able to enjoy the engine without becoming exhausted by it. The Commando's chassis, therefore, became something of an engineering compromise. The engine needed to move slightly relative to the frame. That sounds dangerous. A motorcycle's engine is normally treated as a major structural component. It helps determine the stiffness and behavior of the chassis. Allowing it to move introduces another problem. Norton had to make sure the wheels, steering system, suspension, and frame remained stable while the engine was isolated. This required careful design. The solution wasn't simply to put the engine on soft rubber and hope for the best. The mounting system had to control movement while filtering vibration. That balance was critical. Too stiff, and vibration would return. Too soft, and the motorcycle could become unstable. Norton engineers had to find the middle ground. And when they did, the Commando acquired a riding character that helped distinguish it from almost every other British twin. The motorcycle felt powerful, without feeling primitive. That was a major achievement. It also helped the Commando become one of the most desirable British motorcycles of its era. The motorcycle's performance wasn't limited to straight-line acceleration. Norton had an impressive racing heritage, and that experience influenced the company's understanding of handling. The Commando used a relatively conventional-looking chassis, but its geometry and suspension gave it a sporting personality. The front fork and rear suspension allowed the motorcycle to handle winding roads with much more confidence than its size might suggest. And the frame itself had an unusual relationship with the engine because of the isolastic arrangement. The motorcycle was essentially divided into different zones. The engine and gearbox formed one major unit. The rider and wheels were connected through the frame and suspension. The rubber mounts sat between them. That separation became the secret behind the Commando's livability. It was an elegant solution to a problem that had frustrated Norton for years. But the Commando wasn't perfect. The isolastic mounts required attention. The rubber components could wear, and correct adjustment was important. If the mounts weren't properly maintained, the motorcycle could develop excessive movement or unwanted handling characteristics. So Norton had not eliminated maintenance. It had simply moved the problem. That was common in engineering. Every solution creates another responsibility. But compared with the original problem of transmitting huge amounts of vibration into the rider, it was a trade worth making. The Commando became proof of that. There was also another reason the motorcycle mattered. Norton was trying to survive. The British motorcycle industry was under enormous pressure. Companies were competing against each other while Japanese manufacturers were beginning to introduce motorcycles with increasingly sophisticated engineering. Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki, and Kawasaki were changing what riders expected. Electric starting was becoming more attractive. Multi-cylinder engines were becoming increasingly common. Disc brakes were appearing. Manufacturing quality was improving. And the old image of the British motorcycle as a fast but temperamental machine was becoming a problem. Norton needed the Commando to be more than another classic twin. It needed to feel modern. The Isolastic system helped achieve that. For riders used to the vibration of older British motorcycles, the Commando could feel surprisingly refined. Not silent, not perfectly smooth, but much easier to ride. And that difference mattered. Imagine riding an older Norton twin at high speed for an extended period. The engine's vibration would eventually become part of everything you did. Your hands would feel it. Your feet would feel it. The mirrors could become difficult to use. Now imagine taking that same basic idea and placing it inside a chassis designed to isolate much of that vibration. Suddenly, the motorcycle's performance became more accessible. The rider could concentrate on the road. That was the Commando's great trick. It didn't remove the personality of the British twin. It made the personality easier to live with. And then there was the design. The Commando looked fast even when it was parked. Its fuel tank, seat, exhausts, and exposed engine created a shape that became instantly recognizable. The motorcycle had an almost purposeful simplicity. There was no unnecessary bodywork. The mechanical parts were on display. The engine was the centerpiece. The exhaust system emphasized the motorcycle's length. And the rider sat in a position that encouraged long-distance riding as well as spirited backroad use. This combination helped the Commando become a genuine all-round performance motorcycle. It could commute, it could tour, it could attack a winding road, and it could cruise at speeds that were genuinely impressive for the period. The motorcycle's reputation grew quickly. It began receiving attention from the motorcycle press, and its performance made it a serious contender among British motorcycles. In 1968, the Commando was still relatively new, but the basic formula was already proving itself. Norton had taken an old problem and turned it into a selling point. Instead of apologizing for the vibration of its engine, the company could point to the Isolastic system and explain that the motorcycle had been engineered specifically to deal with it. That was clever marketing because it was also genuine engineering. The Commando wasn't pretending the vibration didn't exist. It had been designed around the fact that it did. This is an important distinction. Good engineering doesn't always mean eliminating a problem completely. Sometimes it means controlling the problem so effectively that the rider stops caring about it. That is what Norton accomplished. The engine could shake. The rider didn't have to. And that simple concept helped preserve the character of the big British twin at a moment when many manufacturers were beginning to look toward entirely different engine designs. The Commando therefore became something of a bridge. It connected the old British motorcycle world with the new one. It still had the traditional parallel twin. It still had carburetors. It still had mechanical controls. It still required regular maintenance. But it also had an engineering solution that felt remarkably modern. The Isolastic mounting system was not just a gimmick. It represented a different way of thinking about motorcycle design. Instead of forcing every component to share the same mechanical environment, Norton began treating the rider and engine as separate systems. The engine could do what engines do. The rider could experience what riders actually wanted: speed, control, comfort, and character. That combination is why the Commando became so important. It also explains why the motorcycle has survived so strongly in enthusiast culture. People don't remember it simply because it was fast. They remember it because it felt different. The engine had enormous personality. The chassis had a distinct character. The sound was unmistakable. And the rubber mounting system gave the motorcycle an unusual smoothness for a big British twin. It was a machine that could make you smile without immediately making your hands numb. That was progress. But the Commando also arrived at the wrong time in one important sense. The motorcycle industry was changing faster than Norton could respond. The Japanese manufacturers were not just improving existing motorcycles. They were introducing entirely new standards. By the early 1970s, machines like the Honda CB750 had shown riders what multi-cylinder performance and refinement could look like. Norton could fight back with the Commando, but the larger battle was becoming increasingly difficult. The British motorcycle industry was dealing with financial problems, manufacturing challenges, and corporate changes. Norton itself eventually became part of the larger Norton Villiers Triumph organization. The Commando continued developing through the early 1970s, receiving different versions and improvements. But its most important contribution had already been made. It had proven that the traditional British twin could still be competitive, not by pretending to be something else, but by solving its biggest weakness: Vibration had always been one of the defining characteristics of big parallel twins. Norton turned that weakness into an engineering challenge, and the Isolastic system became the answer. This is why the 1968 Commando deserves to be remembered differently from many other classic British motorcycles. It wasn't simply a fast motorcycle, it was a motorcycle that solved a problem. That may sound less exciting than talking about top speed or horsepower, but engineering history is often built around exactly these kinds of decisions. A motorcycle can have an incredible engine, but if the rider can't comfortably use it, the engine's potential doesn't matter. Norton understood that. The Commando's success came from making the powerful 750cc twin more usable. And once that happened, the motorcycle could finally deliver what the engine had promised for years. Speed without punishment, power without constant discomfort, character without completely sacrificing practicality. That balance is what made the Commando special. Today, modern motorcycles use sophisticated systems to control vibration. Counterbalancers, advanced engine mounts, computer-aided chassis design, and increasingly refined engine architecture have made vibration almost invisible on many machines. But in 1968, Norton was solving the problem with rubber. Simple material, clever application, big result. And perhaps that's the most impressive part of the story. The Commando didn't need to abandon the British twin. It simply needed to give the twin a better environment to live in. The motorcycle became a reminder that innovation doesn't always arrive in the form of a revolutionary engine. Sometimes it arrives through the way existing components are connected. Norton understood that connection mattered, and the Commando became the proof. When you look at one today, it is easy to see only the chrome, the tank, the big twin, and the unmistakable British styling. But beneath all of that is a clever engineering idea. The engine is allowed to be what it is. The rider is protected from the worst of it. And somewhere between those two worlds, the Isolastic system quietly does its job. That is why the 1968 Norton Commando remains such an important motorcycle. It represented a company trying to preserve the strengths of British engineering while finally confronting one of its biggest weaknesses. It was fast, it was charismatic, it was unmistakably British. But most importantly, it was more comfortable to ride than the motorcycles that came before it. And that small change helped keep the big British twin alive for several more years. The Commando didn't save the entire British motorcycle industry. No single motorcycle could do that. But it did save something important. It saved the idea that a traditional British parallel twin could still be exciting, fast, and genuinely desirable in a rapidly changing world. And it did it with one deceptively simple idea. Let the engine vibrate. Don't let the rider feel it. That was the secret hidden inside the Norton Commando. And for a motorcycle industry running out of time, it was one of the smartest ideas Britain had left.